The taste of copper is the first thing you notice. Not the fire, not the screaming, just the metallic tang of something invisible and wrong on your tongue. But 3 years ago, the only thing you tasted in this city was oranges in winter. You step off the train in a city that shouldn't exist. It's the autumn of 1983, and you're 24 years old, fresh from the Moscow Engineering Physics Institute with a degree in nuclear engineering and a letter assigning you to the Chernobyl nuclear power plant, the most powerful reactor complex in the Soviet Union. You expected gray. Every Soviet city you've ever known is gray. But this one has trees lining every boulevard, ceramic mosaics on the apartment blocks, and flower beds that somebody actually waters. This is Pripyat. Population 49,000. Average age 26. It's what the party calls an Atomgrad, a closed city built for one purpose: to house the people who split atoms for the motherland. You don't know it yet, but you have less than 1,000 days left in this city. Your apartment is on the 4th floor of a building on Kurchatov Street. 2 bedrooms, a balcony overlooking the river, and a kitchen with appliances you've never seen in Moscow. The supermarket downstairs stocks goods that don't exist in Kyiv. Imported chocolate. Fresh oranges in winter. Sausages with actual meat in them. The party takes care of its nuclear workers. There's a cinema, a sports complex with an Olympic-sized pool, and a cultural palace where they show films on Saturdays. Down by the Pripyat River, white sand beaches stretch through birch forest. Young families picnic there on weekends. A hydrofoil runs to Kyiv every morning, 2 hours south if you ever feel like leaving. You never do. Why would you? They're building an amusement park in the center of town. Ferris wheel, bumper cars, swing boats. It opens May 1st. You can see the construction from your balcony. Your first week at the plant, you meet Sasha. Alexander Alexandrovich Akimov, technically, but nobody calls him that. He's 30, from Novosibirsk, and he works in Unit 4. Same shift rotation as you. You eat lunch together in the plant canteen most days, talking about football and complaining about the night shifts. He has a wife and young children at home. He shows you photographs sometimes. Sasha is the kind of person who stays late to double-check readings that don't need double-checking. You like him for that. You're assigned as a reactor operator in Unit 4. They train you on the RBMK reactor. Reactor Bolshoi Moshnosti Kanalny. High-power channel-type reactor. 3,200 megawatts of thermal energy. The instructor explains how it works. Graphite blocks slow the neutrons. Water flows through channels around the fuel rods, absorbs the heat, boils into steam, and the steam spins the turbines that light up half of Ukraine. Simple, elegant, safe, that's what they tell you. The safest reactor design in the world. One afternoon during a training session, Sasha raises his hand and asks what happens if the coolant water boils off faster than it can be replaced. The instructor pauses, changes the subject. You both notice, but neither of you says anything. Here's what they don't tell you. In most reactors, if the water boils away, the chain reaction slows down on its own. It's self-correcting, like a car that brakes when you take your foot off the gas. But the RBMK doesn't work that way. In this reactor, if the water boils away, the chain reaction speeds up. More heat creates more steam, which creates more heat, which creates more steam. Imagine pressing the brake and the car accelerates. That's the RBMK at low power. This information is classified. Your instructors know. The designers in Moscow know. You don't. 3 years pass. You learn the hum of the reactor the way a sailor learns the sound of his ship. The pitch tells you everything. You can close your eyes at the control panel and know whether the power output is climbing or falling. 3 years of 12-hour shifts, canteen lunches with Sasha, weekends on the beach, and the quiet pride of running the most powerful reactor in the country. April 25th, 1986, a Friday. A routine safety test is scheduled for Unit 4. They want to see if the turbines can generate enough electricity during a power cut to keep the coolant pumps running while the emergency diesel generators spin up. Simple test. Straightforward test. Power reduction begins in the morning, but then Kiev calls. The electrical grid needs the power. The test is postponed. The day shift leaves. This was supposed to be their test. Now it belongs to the night shift. Now it belongs to you. The night shift starts at midnight. Sasha is the shift supervisor for Unit 4. 32 years old now, with a young family at home. The senior reactor control engineer is a 25-year-old named Leonid Toptunov. And standing behind both of them, watching, is the deputy chief engineer, Anatoly Dyatlov. He's 55. He doesn't ask. He tells. The power reduction resumes. You watch the gauges. 700 megawatts, 500, 300. Then something goes wrong. The power doesn't stop dropping. It plummets. 30 megawatts, nearly zero. The reactor has poisoned itself, a phenomenon called xenon buildup, where the fission process creates a neutron-absorbing gas that smothers the chain reaction like a wet blanket on a fire. The textbook says to shut down and wait 24 hours for the xenon to decay. Dyatlov says pull out the control rods, raise the power. We're doing this test tonight. The operators begin withdrawing the rods. There are supposed to be a minimum of 30 control rods in the core at all times. You watch the counter. 25, 20, 15, 8. Everyone in the room knows this is wrong. Sasha looks at Leonid. Leonid looks at you. Nobody speaks, because Dyatlov outranks all of you. And in the Soviet Union, you do not question the man who outranks you. At 1 in the morning, the power stabilizes at 200 megawatts. It should be at 700 for this test. Under normal conditions, the reactor runs at 1000, but 200 is the zone where the RBMK becomes something else entirely. At low power, the positive void coefficient dominates. The reactor is no longer stable. It's a coiled spring. Dyatlov checks his clipboard. We proceed. At 123, the turbine valves close. Coolant flow drops. Steam begins to build. You're watching the gauges and something changes. The numbers aren't falling. They're climbing. The hum of the reactor shifts pitch. You've heard this sound 1,000 times. But not like this. This is higher. This is wrong. Leonid reaches for the red button on the console. AZ5. Emergency shutdown. Every control rod in the reactor drops at once. But here is the last secret they kept from you. The control rods have graphite tips. And graphite doesn't slow the reaction. It accelerates it. For the first few seconds of an emergency shutdown, the rods make things worse before they make things better. At full power, this spike is manageable. At 200 megawatts, with a core full of xenon and almost no rods left to pull, it is not. The power surges. 1,000 megawatts, 10,000, 30,000. 10 times the reactor's rated capacity and still climbing. In 4 seconds. The fuel rods shatter. The coolant channels rupture. Steam pressure blows the 1,000-ton biological shield straight off the top of the reactor. 2 explosions. The first is steam. The second, nobody agrees on what it was. Hydrogen, maybe. Or something worse. The building tears apart. Burning graphite and nuclear fuel are launched into the night sky. And from the exposed core, a beam of blue light rises into the darkness. Cherenkov radiation. The glow of charged particles moving faster than light can travel through air. A mechanical engineer named Alexander Yuvchenko, holding open a door near the reactor hall, will later describe it as the most beautiful thing he has ever seen. Beautiful, and the last thing many of his colleagues will ever see. The control room is dark. Dust hangs in the air. The alarms are screaming, but they sound far away, like they're coming from another building. Someone pulls out a dosimeter. 3.6 Roentgen per hour. That's the number on the screen. Dyatlov glances at it. 3.6. Not great, not terrible. What he doesn't know, what nobody in the room knows yet, is that the dosimeter maxes out at 3.6. That is the instrument's ceiling, not the radiation level. A higher range dosimeter exists somewhere in the plant, one that can read up to 1,000 Roentgen per second. When someone finally finds it, the needle goes off the scale. The actual level near the exposed core is estimated at tens of thousands of Roentgen per hour. A lethal dose is 500 over 5 hours. You are standing in a building where the air itself is poison, and the only instrument you have tells you it's manageable. You notice a taste in your mouth, metallic, like you're sucking on a copper coin. Pins and needles spread across your face. Your skin feels warm. These are the first symptoms of acute radiation syndrome. You don't know that either. Sasha tells you to stay at the console and monitor what's left of the instruments. He's going down to the Feedwater Room on level 27. He thinks a valve is stuck, and if he can open it, water will flow back into the reactor. There is no reactor anymore. But he doesn't know that. He takes Leonid with him. They walk into a room where radioactive water is ankle deep, and the pipes are so hot the paint has blistered off the walls. They spend hours turning valves by hand. You never see Sasha healthy again. Dawn comes and Pripyat wakes up to a normal Saturday. Through the window of the plant you can see children playing in the schoolyard. A man walks his dog past the reactor fence. Fishermen head toward the river with their rods over their shoulders. Nobody has been told. Some residents notice a strange glow from the direction of the plant. A few walk to the railway bridge for a better view. They stand there watching the light and they think it's beautiful. They have no idea what they're breathing in. Your skin is red now, the color of a bad sunburn, and you've been vomiting since 4 in the morning. You are not the only one. The firefighters who arrived in the first hour are worse. They picked up pieces of graphite from the ground with their bare hands. One of them said it felt warm. By morning, their faces are swollen and their skin is blistering. Most of them will be dead within 3 weeks. 36 hours after the explosion, on April 27th at 2 in the afternoon, 1,200 buses arrive from Kiev. Loudspeakers crackle through the streets of Pripyat. Attention, citizens. A temporary evacuation is being carried out. You will return in 3 days. Please take your documents, essential belongings, and food for a short journey. 49,000 people pack 1 bag each. They leave the furniture. They leave the photographs on the walls. They leave the dogs and the cats. Children carry stuffed animals and look out the bus windows as the city shrinks behind them. The Ferris wheel stands perfectly still against the gray April sky. It was supposed to open in 4 days. It never will. Nobody returns. Not in 3 days. Not ever. The exclusion zone is 30 kilometers in every direction. 2,600 square kilometers of emptied land. They say the core area won't be safe for 20,000 years. 4 days later, the May Day parade in Kiev goes ahead as planned. Children march through the streets waving flags while the radiation cloud spreads across northern Europe. The state does not cancel parades. In the weeks that follow, 600,000 men are sent to clean up what you helped build. They call them liquidators. The most dangerous job goes to the men on the roof, clearing chunks of graphite by hand. The radiation is so intense that robots sent up first have their circuits fried within minutes. So they send humans instead. They call them biorobots. 90 seconds each. They wear suits made from lead sheets, stripped from office walls, and a plate over the groin they call the egg basket. Helicopter pilots drop sand and boron onto the burning core from above. They have a rhyme about it. If you want to be a dad, cover your balls with lead. Sasha dies on May 11th, 16 days after the explosion. He never left the building that night. He sent his crew to pump water into a reactor that no longer existed, without protective gear, because he believed it was his responsibility. His last words, according to the nurse who was with him, were that his conscience hurt more than his injuries. He was 33 years old. Leonid Toptanov, the senior reactor control engineer who pressed AZ5, who pressed the emergency button that was supposed to save everyone, dies 3 days after Sasha. He was 25. You survive. Your dose was high but not the highest. You're relocated to a flat in Kyiv. Smaller, grayer. No supermarket downstairs, no beach, no balcony overlooking the river. You watch the trial on television. Dyatlov receives 10 years. The plant director receives 10 years. But the men who designed the reactor, the men who classified the positive void coefficient, the men who knew the control rods had graphite tips and said nothing, they are not in the courtroom. Nobody who built the system that built Chernobyl ever stands trial. You think about Pripyat sometimes, the apartment on Kurchatov Street, the white sand beach and the birch trees, the amusement park that never opened. Sasha showing you photographs of his children at lunch, the canteen. The hum of the reactor at the right pitch, the one that meant everything was normal. You survived. 28 of your colleagues did not. Thousands more will die in the years to come from cancers that don't show up on a dosimeter. You think about the question Sasha asked in training, the one about the coolant boiling off. The instructor changed the subject. If he had answered honestly, would it have changed anything? You don't know. You just know that every morning when you wake up, for the rest of your life, you taste metal in the back of your throat. And you're never quite sure if it's the radiation or the memory.